Russians for the support they provided him back in 2004 and in 2010, but not that obviously like they did it in 2004. So he was obviously paying to Russians for this support, so at the expense of basic strategic national security interest of Ukraine. So it was done later in a similar way. For example, 1st of July 2010, he initiated the approval of the new law on fundamentals of Ukraine's internal and external policy, as a result of which the provision on NATO membership as an objective was removed, and instead so-called non-bloc status was proclaimed. So this was as well, you know, a kind of payment to Russians for their support. So this talks about participation or non-participation in custom union also was part of the package, as well as Ukrainian aviation industry, Ukrainian nuclear energy industry, Ukrainian aircraft industry. So the most powerful branches of Ukrainian economy were subject of the payment by him to Russians. So as a result, we have control of Russians over our aviation industry. As a result, we have further, deeper dependence of Ukraine on Russian energy supply by, having the full control by Russians over the supply of nuclear fuel, in addition to gas, oil. So this was obviously contrary to Ukraine's national interest. Well, the very fact that the fortunes of biggest Ukrainian oligarchs has doubled for just 1 year of his rule is a result of this, payment. So the very fact that Rusukrenergo has become ever stronger during his presidency is also, kind of a payment. So the money spent for the elections of 2009-2010 had to be returned. These are the realities of Ukrainian politics. I know very well the history of Ukrainian-Russian relationship over gas supply. So let me suggest that we go a little back from 2009. In 2006, under Tymoshenko presidency, and it was when he sent her to resignation, in September 2005, another prime minister was Yulia. And during that period, we had first crisis, gas crisis, January 2006, during which Yushchenko himself instructed a negotiating team being in Moscow to switch from the directives, and I was a participant in preparation of those, in preparing those directions, and he unilaterally, by phone, instructed the negotiating team to agree on Russian terms. So since that time, for the first time, the agreement which granted Ukraine the price for gas until 2013 at $50 per 1,000 cubic meters was destroyed. So, and instead we got the price $95. So this was his personal instruction, contrary to the directives which were approved by the government. In 2009, he was also interfering into the negotiations concerning the future agreement by recalling from negotiations Oleg Dubina, head of Naftogaz, what he is refusing to confirm. But this is obvious to and known to everybody who was close to the process, that he recalled Dubina. He is now denying. And from Moscow they said that he is lying. I do agree. And Yulia Tymoshenko forged a deal, not herself. He gave the instruction to make a deal. And according to the theory of the law, there is a principle of division of responsibilities. So as a politician, she is not responsible and cannot be brought to the criminal responsibility under the law as a politician for instructions she was given, only provided that these instructions might have created a benefit for her personal benefit. So this was not the case. So that's why I'm of the opinion that it was from the very beginning politically motivated process over Yulia Tymoshenko as a politician. So, and
saying is that she was essentially still.
Rosukrenergo is another story. But major reason of her being brought to the court was a personal revenge from Viktor Yanukovych to Yulia Tymoshenko as his major opponent during the presidential elections, first, and second, he is very much afraid of Yulia Tymoshenko being his next opponent at the next presidential election. So he is, very much interested in pushing her out of the process. First of all, they belong to her part of the government. So I would like you to know that none of the 50% of the government subordinated to Yushchenko were ever prosecuted. So only those who were a part of her team. Yuri Lutsenko, this is another story, another psychological reason, like in case of Yulia Tymoshenko, because there is another person, current vice prime minister, a very influential one from a party of regions, who felt himself being, how to say it? Being offended by the fact that he was put to jail for 1 or 2 months when Lutsenko was the Minister of Interior. So this is a kind of personal revenges. This is, in case of Yulia Tymoshenko, I told you that as a politician, she cannot be brought to the court because of her decisions and instructions as a prime minister, unless there were corruption schemes. Nobody could and can prove, including the current court, that there was obviously a corruption scheme. So that's why
they're not trying to either.
Huh?
As far as I know, they're not even trying to, right?
Well, because there is no ground for this whatsoever. And it is obviously, and this is yet another example of the purposeful, politically motivated process against Yulia Tymoshenko to push her away from political activity for another 5 or 10 years.
So would it be fair to say that what we're looking at is a situation in which we have a questionably elected president? I mean, a vast majority of the public that I've spoken to feels that the elections were very questionable, as does the...
I do confirm. Okay. I do confirm. But,
so who sold out illegally a significant part of Ukraine's interest to Russia, in order to become its puppet, and basically completely violating any and all aspects of civility and certain obvious laws, and also violating a massive amount of civic and human rights laws in order to just take a personal revenge on a political opponent and all those connected with that.
Yeah, and this activity was noticeable for us in Ukraine since March last year. But strangely the U.S. administration, the European Union, many capitals of the European Union did, say at that time, spring 2010, that finally there is a stability in Ukraine, there is a stable, authorities. There are stable authorities in Ukraine, so I was questioning this and saying this is not the case. Stability does exist in symmetry as well. Stability does exist in Northern Korea or in Iran. So are you in favor of such stability in Ukraine?
Right.
So finally, those capitals started to criticize him for being undemocratic, for backsliding democracy in Ukraine, for deviating from democratic values of Orange Revolution. So, and the Freedom House, gave another remarks. The European Parliament started to criticize the authorities very quickly.
Right.
So, this was not a stability at all. For us, it was obvious that he's going to create authoritarian regime in Ukraine. The way he was breaching the constitution, the laws, was very impressive. It was obvious for us, but it was not obvious for capitals of major democratic countries. There are two different stories. For Ukrainian democratic forces to get reunited after being disrupted by Yushchenko, it is not that easy task. Strangely, but those who were saying that we are going to get united, but without Yulia Tymoshenko, strangely to say, but finally when she was put to jail or into custody, so they finally started to say, okay, we are ready to get united. So this is what we see now. About the timing of the West to understand what is going on in Ukraine, I understand that from the very beginning they wanted to give him, a credit to try to do something in order to evaluate. But it was obvious for us from the very beginning that starting as of March last year, he created the situation by which they breached the constitution by unconstitutionally creating the majority in the parliament. So from this action, they started to neglect the rule of law in Ukraine and democracy in Ukraine. So this was the beginning.
Okay,
so why the European Union and the other capitals did realize this so late? So because they were trying to give him some time to prove that he is wishing developing Ukraine in a democratic way.